現れろリンクさんダークナイトバッドイグニスター
Hello everyone, hopefully you're all doing well today. My name is Knights of AI. It's certainly been a while since I last uploaded a video on the channel, and for all those viewers out there that have been keeping up with the channel, I want to apologize for staying silent on the matter. I'll provide some channel updates shortly on where I've been and what I've been doing. For now, to provide a brief intro, Lightning Overdrive released this past weekend, and so I felt like it was fitting for me to upload a new deck profile detailing my new list for the Ignister archetype. In the case you're a viewer here only interested in the deck profile itself, please use the timestamps below to skip to the start of the deck profile. If you're interested in any channel updates, I'll get into those right away. So regarding the channel updates, the reason why I've been so silent is because I've been busy with school. I finished my 4th year just now, I graduated. I'm now applying to medical school, and I'm going to be doing a master's degree in my gap year to medical school. All those commitments combined, you can imagine that I didn't have too much time to upload videos. In addition to that, I wasn't really into the game for quite a few months. I didn't have locals to attend. I wasn't really playing online events, and even though I was frequently seeing my friends, we didn't really play too much Yu-Gi-Oh! So I felt a little bit distanced from the game. Even when the new support was announced, I made those new combo videos, etc. I wasn't really interested in playing the deck just because it felt wrong to play the deck prior to getting the new support. Also, it felt weird to play the deck prior to Lightning Overdrive, since the deck was going to change completely post Lightning Overdrive. Fortunately, all those times have passed, and I'm feeling better about the channel, feeling better about the time I have, so I am going to be uploading a little bit more often than usual. This revitalization effort does come with some changes to things. As you can probably tell, I'm using audio now to provide commentary on my videos. That will certainly make things easier in some ways. Also, I'm going to be updating some animations for combo videos and related videos. You can already see that there have been some newer animations in this particular video, though I guess not too difficult or too new. And moving forward, I'll try to update the channel, or try to continually update the channel with more animations, etc., to make the channel look more modern and crisp for the viewers. This doesn't necessarily mean that I'll be more active than usual. My original intent for this channel remains the same, where this is just a channel for me to... It's a creative outlet for me to express my enjoyment for the deck. Unless the channel becomes super serious, that is possible. Maybe I get a lot of subscribers, and so I have a lot of backing to support me continue playing, or continue making videos. In that case, I will definitely consider treating the channel more seriously, having a fixed schedule, and upping the quality of my videos, etc., etc. But for now, I'll just be uploading on a rather sporadic schedule whenever I feel like content needs to be delivered. Hopefully all of you are okay with that. You can always voice your suggestions in the comments below. Also, as I said earlier, I am sorry for being silent on my haikus. I'll definitely communicate with all of you if I go on another haikus in the future, so that you aren't left hanging. That said, thanks for listening in on the channel updates. Thank you for sticking with me, for those of you that have been waiting all this time. Hopefully videos I make forward will be fruitful for your entertainment. Aside from that, I think we'll just get on with the deck profile. I do want to preface the deck profile by saying everything you hear in this deck profile you should take with a grain of salt. Even though I have been playing this deck for a while and I have experience with the deck, I don't necessarily have any tops to back it up. I'm not high rated on DB. I don't have any particular awards or anything to validate any of my opinions. It's just my own opinions and what I feel is best for the deck. Thus, if you feel like there's anything you hear in the video that you disagree with and or you don't want to follow, you're not obliged to follow any of those suggestions. This deck is, the profile you'll see here is the way I build the deck. Of course, you can build the deck however you want. So just remember that as you move forward. I don't want any of you to be angry if you see a choice in here that you dislike, etc., etc. Though I'm always willing to discuss those options in the comments below. That said, let me grab these cards and we'll get moving forward. We're starting off with the main deck monsters. So for what I consider to be the core of the deck, we are playing 3 Ignister at Ignister and 3 Bakari at Ignister. For the OG players out there, this should be very self-explanatory. For the newer players, I will quickly explain. These are both your searchers. This one will search any level 4 lower Ignister monster. This will search any AI spell or trap. The fact that this can search the new Rhoda as well means this technically has access to all at Ignister monsters in the deck, minus without the restriction that Ignister has. If you watch my recent Lightning Overdrive combo video, these are at the heart of almost every single 1-card combo out there for this deck. So as you can imagine, these two are just very crucial for the deck, just being able to tutor out anything you need. As well as being an extender. If you draw both these in tandem with each other, then you can normal summon one, that's your starter, and then the other will be your extender. These both do have secondary effects. Ignister's secondary effect isn't too relevant. It destroys one of your own monsters during battle. It does become relevant post-battle selection with a new reborn spell, but even then I don't think it'll be too important. Bakari's secondary effect is actually pretty good. Being able to turn any leveled at Ignister monster into a level 4 lets you make Light Dragon, and Light Dragon can be used to pop troublesome monsters and or bait out disruptions. For example, there are a lot of cases when I was testing against Pure Zoo where they would set up a Zeus, and sometimes I would have the correct hand to make Bakari plus another monster in field, turn them into a Light Dragon, and bait out the Zeus quick play effect before I continue with my combo. So you want to keep that level 4 modulating effect in mind, since it will come up and it can save you some games. So that is this is like the core of the deck, I'd say. These next 2 cards, the 2 copies of Bururu at Ignister and 2 copies of Doyon at Ignister, sorry for the mispronunciation. Both of these are also very important. Bururu is an Armageddon Knight / Foolish Barrio, whichever you want to relate it to. Being able to dump any at Ignister monster means you can dump cards to reborn off using Idle Reborn. You can also dump the Danmari to use it in tandem with the Link 6 to negate stuff. It's also a tuner, which means you can use it to synchro with any level 4 at Ignister you control to make Wind Pegasus and or Cyrus Quantum Dragon. Please note I'm not playing Quantum Dragon, but the Pegasus is important for baiting out spell and trap removal, etc., as I'll mention later when we look at the extra deck. Doyon is your main recycler. Being able to grab back an at Ignister monster when you normal or special summon it, while also being able to grab back any AI spell or trap when you link it off for a Cyrus monster, lets you win a lot of grind games. Or not win necessarily, but it gives you a lot of leverage in those more grindy matchups. So you want to make sure you keep this in play whenever you play against a deck like Paleos, Eldritch, anything that's very grinding like that. I should note that if you've been paying attention to a lot of OCG deck lists or any of the recent TCG deck lists, including the recent Extravaganza list that topped, there are a lot of people that are only playing one of this, or one of both in the same list. And the reason I see for that is that those players want to conserve deck space for other disruptions, maybe more hand traps. I know the Extravaganza list did play Solemn Strike, Solemn Judgment, and Ice Dragon's Prison, which I'm not playing. The reason why I like playing more is because being able to see more at Ignister monsters in your hand can let you extend a lot more than you would normally be able to extend opening only any of these copies. In the case you're banking on these cards to net you your entire combo, if these cards are disrupted, and I expect that people will be looking at these cards to disrupt as this deck gains more relevance, your combo stops there. Whereas if you start with these cards, you bait out disruptions, you have the field spell, you can then summon these from hand if you open them, and continue your combos as nothing happened. So having more names I feel is better for this deck. And I did already mention that these are both very useful, and so just having more copies means you can see them more and be able to use their relevant effects more frequently. So this out of the way, very straightforward I'd say. The other at Ignister monsters I'm playing include Doshin at Ignister, the Danmari at Ignister, and then one copy of Gachiri at Ignister. So the reasoning behind these three, Doshin and Gachiri are only extenders. Both of these are searchable off of the Rhoda by a revealing transcode, and the Doshin's also searchable off of Ichichi. We don't play the Love Fusion for Doshin. It's not that it's a bad card, it's just it feels very subpar in the current format, and it's also a pain to draw. Even though there are decks like Tri-Brigade Zoo and Dragon Link making a lot of Link monsters, most of their Link monsters can dodge the light or the Love Fusion. For example, Dragon puts up Hieratic Seals, which can just dodge Love Fusion on activation, and then the Tri-Brigade Links are not too threatening, and the threatening Link monsters that they do put out are summoned off of Revolt anyways, so it's not like you can react before they react to you. So no Love Fusion for Doshin. Gachiri, even though it's not searchable off of Ichichi, we already mentioned that it's searchable off the Rhoda, and the protection effects are very useful. Being able to make one of your monsters immune forces out a lot of disruptions. For example, there are a lot of cases where I set this off of Bururu to recur with Splash Mage, and then I would use Splash Mage, the Gachiri, and another monster to make Dark Templar. This can then target the Dark Templar, and your opponent is forced to imperm the Dark Templar. Otherwise, the Gachiri will protect the Templar from any further interactions. So Gachiri is very useful, and then its effect on field, even though it doesn't come up too often, you can always weave it into some boards, so that's always nice. So yeah, these two are mainly extenders, though this one has that added effect. The Danmari is your primary negate when you have the Rival Cyrus at Ignister up. You can dump it off Bururu during your opponent's turn or during your turn. During your opponent's turn, you would just reborn this if you have the reborn available to you. You dump this, and then this can banish itself from grave to target a face-up card in the field and negate it. That can only be activated if you control a level or Link 6 or higher, and the Rival is the only Link 6 in the game. So it's a very nice negate, and it just it helps the Rival stick, as well as it helps you manage what your opponent's doing. When you draw it, it's not terrible. Being able to stop an attack involving your at Ignister monster can actually save you quite a few times. It can prevent damage, or it can preserve monsters for another turn. For example, I remember a game where someone Nibiru'd me. I made Dark Templar and passed, and then he tried to attack over me with the Nibiru, and I had this in hand, so I just discarded this to save my Templar for another turn. So drawing this isn't terrible, but of course you don't necessarily want to see it in hand. The other thing I should mention about these three is that Gachiri and Danmari are not summonable off of the field spell, so you have to keep that in mind. Don't think that you can just search these off of the Rhoda and then special summon them, because they are level 5 or higher, and the field spell only lets you summon level 4 or lower. This is all of the main deck at Ignister monsters. I'm not playing any of the other ones. For example, I'm not playing Hiyari because I don't have any targets in the extra deck to reveal for it, and I'm not playing the rituals. And then the remaining at Ignister monsters we have available to us, I didn't feel like were too relevant. For example, Donyaribo is very niche, and then Gusari is neat and all, but it's a very reactive card, and I wanted more cards that were proactive and or helped me combo a lot easier. So this is it for the main deck at Ignister monsters. We do play hand traps, so I'll cover those right now. I do play 3 Low Drone Lockbird, 3 Ash Blossoming Joy Spring, and then 3 Ghost Mourner and Moonlight Chill. To explain this, the 3 Droll, I felt like it was very strong this format, and I do feel like it's going to be strong next format as well. Being able to prevent Dragon from searching all of its extenders, being able to stop Drytron from searching all of its combo pieces, and then just somewhat hitting Tri-Brigade 2 in some combo lines, as well as hitting a lot of rogue decks. This is just a very nice card overall, and I feel like I feel like it's a good inclusion in the main as of right now. Even in the case that Dragon gets hit next format, Tri-Brigade 2 gets hit next format, as well as Drytron, I don't think they would be outright killed as decks, and so I feel like this would still persist into the next format. Ash Blossom should be very self-explanatory. It hits basically every deck in the format. I'm saying that tentatively because I'm trying to make sure I'm not forgetting any decks, but it does hit quite a few decks. It also hits Rogue very well, so having this card in the main and just having it overall is nice. The one card here that I could definitely consider changing is the Ghost Mourner and Moonlight Chill. This would probably be Imperm if I had copies. I don't own any copies right now, so I opted for Ghost Mourner over, say, Veiler. I do feel like Effect Negation is going to be pretty nice going into this upcoming format. You can stop Dragon combos where they try to chain block some of their monsters. You can also hit Drytron. For example, you can hit the XYZ without having to worry about getting heralded. Or I guess in this case, with Mourner, you could still get negated by Herald, but with the Imperm, if I had them, if you were playing them, then you can hit the XYZ without worry. And then just Effect Negation hits a lot of smaller decks as well. So again, Ghost Mourner is just my option for now. If you have Imperms, I definitely recommend playing Imperm over this, but for now, this is what I have. I'm not playing any other hand traps. You'll notice that I'm only playing 9, whereas the Extravagance list I was playing 12. Also, some people might be playing more, like 15, 18, if you have this deck space. I felt like 9 was okay, and you'll see with the spells that I have some concession spells in place of hand traps to deal with my opponent's board if I go second. So this does wrap up the monsters for now, and we'll get into the spells shortly. As I briefly mentioned earlier, I'm not really playing any traps. I was testing Solemn Strike and Solemn Judgment in the main earlier in my testing. However, it felt really bad when my opponent was playing spell and trap removal and those cards would just be removed. Also, going second, those cards didn't necessarily help me out in opponent's board. I guess you could set the strike going second to negate an opponent's monster during their turn, but that felt very reactive rather than proactive. So you'll see that I do have some concessions that can be played going second immediately. Before that, however, we will talk about the spells. So I do have 3 I Meet You, 3 Idol Reborn, and then 3 copies of the Ignister Island. Sorry, just shuffling the deck. So yeah, 3, 3, 3. Again, this might be a little bit self-explanatory to the Oshi players, but for the newer players, I'll explain. This Rhoda lets you add any Ignister monster by revealing a Cyrus monster with 2300 attack. Then you get to add an Ignister monster with the same attribute. So just being able to tutor out your entire deck, I don't see any reason to play any less than 3 of this. You do need to keep in mind that you will get burned for 2300 at the end of the turn if you do not summon the monster you revealed off this effect. So there were some games where I would be losing too much life points and that would cost me the game. It's not like you can do anything about that. It's just you want to be able to just remember to consider that when you're making plays. Also, this does lock you into only activating Cyrus effects, so make sure you account for that, since there are scenarios where you might open Ash Blossom and you want to Ash Blossom your opponent's Beatrice during your own turn. You wouldn't be able to do that after you resolve this, so keep that in mind. But yeah, I wouldn't play any less than 3 of these just because it's a Rhoda and you want to see your monsters as soon as possible. For the other spells, the Idol Reborn, the reason why I'm playing 3 of this, I know some people are playing 2, I just really like seeing this card in my hand. It's an amazing extender, obviously being a quick play Reborn, and it also offers a lot of utility. When you go first, and you don't need to use this, or you recur it back with Doyon, you can set it during your opponent's turn, you can use it to continue accruing resources, or you can use it to summon back Bururu to dump Damari during your opponent's turn, etc, etc. Also lets you play through certain disruptions. Again, I say the fact that I was an extender, and so sometimes you can use this to bring back a monster that was like gammaed, etc, turn it into an infant and continue your combos. The final effect that it has does come up sometimes, the effect that when a monster you control battles, I believe, you can banish this card from your graveyard to target a banished AI Spar trap in your banish zone. That's a little redundant, but whatever. And you can add it back to your hand. So there are some scenarios where your Ignister Island might be banished, or maybe your I Meet You might be banished, and so you can grab these 2 back with the Reborn and have that resource available to you. So yeah, 3/3. Again, I do see a lot of people playing 2 or less, but I do feel like 3's better, just so that we can see it more. Even though it's searchable off Picari, sometimes you don't want to search it off Picari. What I mean by that is that sometimes you might need to search this or this, so just making sure you can see these as much as possible without having to search them off the Picari. For Ignister Island, the reason why I'm playing 3, I know a lot of people are playing 2 or 1, it's because I don't want my deck to be reliant on Dark Infant. I get that Dark Infant is very accessible to the deck now, being a Link 1 that's available in the extra deck, but playing only 2 or 1 means that the Dark Infant becomes a choke point for a lot of combos. There are a lot of times during testing where only playing 2 or 1, my opponent would Imperm or Ash the Dark Infant, and then my turn would end there just because I wouldn't have another copy of this in the hand. Playing 3 means you can see it more frequently, and so in the cases where your Dark Infant gets disrupted, you have the second copy to continue playing. I guess you could make the argument too that playing 3 means you aren't susceptible to losing this to Cosmic Cyclone or getting it banished off of Desires if you play it, etc, etc. But my reasoning for playing 3 is just so that you have the option available to you. So this is all for the IAI spells. Let me get out the non-Ignister spells. We are playing 3 copies of the Signet Mining. We're also playing 3 copies of Willing Twisters, aka Twin Twisters. Mine are German, very nice. And then 3 copies of the Dark Ruler No More. To explain these cards, the Signet Mining, I just wanted to make sure this deck was as consistent as possible. Whenever I cut this down to 2 or 1, or whenever I removed it from the deck, it felt like I wasn't opening my combos as much as possible. I can understand why you'd want to cut it down to 2 or 1, you get more deck space, etc, etc, but the same reason why I play 3 Ignister Island, 3 Reborn, etc, you want to see your combo as often as possible so that you can play the game rather than being stuck with a handful of unplayable cards. Even in the case that you open multiple searchers, for example, maybe you open I Meet You, 1 Mining, 1 Picari, 1 Achichi or something like that, it's not the end of the world just because you can search more extenders with this, or more names for the field spell to summon. For these 6 cards, going back to what I said about concessions, I could be playing trap cards instead of these, and I could also be playing more hand traps instead of these, but I felt like having concessions that could deal with my opponent's board after they establish it would be more beneficial. Hand traps only go so far. Sometimes decks can play through hand traps, and sometimes you won't even draw the hand traps. Meanwhile, these cards, if you go second with these cards, they're not terrible to open since obviously they will contribute to you adding your opponent's board. and then also the fact that they aren't terrible to draw into, and there's not a lot of hand looping being done this format. Dragon doesn't hand loop too much. I know they do have Levineer, but that's not the end of the world. Drytron doesn't hand loop. You also have Zoo not hand looping, etc, etc. So we don't need to worry about these cards getting ripped at all versus having hand traps to stop that ripping. So yeah, essentially, I just like the fact that going second, you can just have these in your hand and you can just stop your opponent overall. I should note that if you have the money, I would definitely recommend playing Droplets over Dark Ruler No More, just so that you can disrupt your opponent's board and then OTK. This obviously prevents you from OTKing because of the preventing damage effect. And then in place of Twisters, you could play Lightning Storm. I do like Twin Twisters right now, but I understand the potency of Lightning Storm just being able to get rid of everything in general. I might even consider, once I get my Harpy's Feather Duster in the mail, to replace one of these with a Harpy's Feather Duster and just have the other two in the main. But yeah, essentially, I want to see these as much as possible, more consistency, and then break the board going second. Of course, no, yeah, that's about it. So this covers the spells, and we're going to move on to the extra deck now. Alright, so for the extra deck, I'd say it's pretty standard. There's only a few changes I've made from other lists as well as the extravaganza list I looked at. So we'll go in order of the card way I have the extra deck right now. Firstly, I'm playing one Wind Pegasus at Ignister and one Light Dragon at Ignister. I don't feel like you should ever cut any of these cards down. They're just so detrimental to adding boards prior to making access code, and or they also contribute to you establishing a solid board going first. The Wind Pegasus being able to remove spell traps, the Light Dragon being able to remove monsters, means you can make these prior to making access code and or any of your other links, and then you will be able to make those links later on safely. These two both do have secondary effects. Wind Pegasus being able to banish itself when a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect. To target a card your opponent controls and shuffle it back into the deck can really catch your opponent off guard if they don't know what it does. The Light Dragon being able to pseudo Dengrisu protect your to be able to protect your monsters from card effect destruction can come up a lot, especially if you're playing into Torrential, if you're trying to dodge Ghost Ogre, Gamma, etc. It does come up. Also, the effect it has where you can summon back a Cyrus Link monster from your grave if you were to inflict battle damage with a Cyrus monster aside from itself. That can be used to get game on board without playing into Nibiru. For example, you could make Light Dragon as your third, fourth summon if you have the resources available to do so. Go into battle phase with this and another Cyrus on field, attack your opponent, poke them, and then this can summon back a Link monster from your grave and attack for more damage. So there's a lot of scenarios where Light Dragon comes up, as well as Wind Pegasus. Just keep that in mind, for Light Dragon especially. The battle damage inflicting effect, it seems very niche, but it does come up a lot, and you do want to remember that throughout games. The Wind Pegasus is just a given. So aside from these two, we do play one Cyrus Wicked, one Fire Phoenix at Ignister, one Link Spider. The Cyrus Wicked is a combo piece. It lets you search Bururu to your hand if you don't already have it. It does have the protection effect where if it was Link Summon, it gains the effect where it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. Also, while it's face up on the field, any cards or any monsters it points to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. That only includes Cyrus monsters. And so there are times where you can make this to play around Torrential or any other related destruction effects. Summon monsters to Wicked zones and you'll be protected from those effects. So you do want to keep that in mind, that does come up. But yeah, usually you're using this to summon or to search for Ruru and not too much else. The Fire Phoenix is in here as a target to reveal with the Rhoda to grab a Chi-Chi. I don't really summon it at all, though I imagine it would come up. The converting burn damage or converting battle damage into burn damage could come up if some archetypes have some sort of way to prevent battle damage for a turn. Also, this thing does float quite a bit, and so I was told by some friends that play at Ignister that this does come up in some of the slower matchups, especially the trap matchups, but I haven't summoned it too much myself, so for now, it's just I only consider it a target for the Rota. The Link Spider is in here for Nibiru. Nibiru is certainly a difficult hand trap to play around with this deck. You don't really put out Apple, you don't really have any way to negate the Nibiru before it comes down. So you have this in here for those hands where you can continue playing past Nibiru. It doesn't happen too often, but it does occur occasionally. So you can use this to link off the token and then summon to your main monster summons with the field spell. So that's why I have it in here. You'll notice as I put down the next two cards being Dark Infant, I'm not actually playing the Lingerivo in the main deck, I'm siding one copy. My reasoning behind this is I felt like 2 Dark Infant was enough for my Link 1s. Usually after I go through both of them, I either won the game or am losing too hard to do anything else. And although trap decks are still present in the meta, for example Paleo is on the rise, you have Eldritch Dwelling somewhere, Trap Shadow maybe, etc, etc. Again, I just feel like this was good enough for now. If I see more trap decks and or I keep running into scenarios where the relevant decks play trap decks or trap cards, I probably put the Lingerivo back in. I guess also as another counter argument, you could say that I should be playing the Lingerivo because Dragon does play the one Dragon Maid trap card, but usually I don't have to worry too much about that. So I don't play the Lingerivo as a result. The 2 Dark Infant, however, this should be a given. It is now a staple for the deck. Being able to grab the field spell on summon is honestly insane, and it's the reason why this deck is going to be more relevant going forward. I'll discuss that at the end of the video. It does have the effect where if another Cyrus monster activates effect while this is face up in the field, you can move this to a different main monster zone and change its attribute. That doesn't come up in this particular version of the deck I have for you. I know it does come up in the version that plays Cyber Quantum Dragon to make in tandem with the Arrival Cybers at Ignister, but since I don't play Quantum Dragon, I don't use this too much for the second effect. It's mainly only the first effect. But yeah, definitely a staple for the deck right now. I wouldn't play any less than 2. Unless of course you need to side out 1 for whatever reason. So that's that. For the other links, we are playing 1 the Arrival Cybers at Ignister, 1 Update Jammer, 2 Splash Mage. The Arrival Cybers at Ignister is our new boss monster. If you've been keeping up with the channel, you might have noticed that previous deck list I was playing the Masquerena instead of the Arrival Cybers at Ignister. My reasoning behind that was because at the time I felt like Masquerena was better. Being able to tag into Bombers or Boros was very nice, and we didn't have Danmari to turn our Arrival Cybers at Ignister boards into a 1 negate. However, now that we have Danmari, and now that the format has shifted in a manner to where it's a little bit more difficult for decks to out a 4K Towers, I'm playing it now. And it's surprisingly been doing well for me. As I just said, a lot of the decks do struggle to out this card. Usually they have to go through great lengths to make an out, and even then they have to play through your hand traps and disruption. So I do think this is a very solid card now. Also, the second effect where you can pop a monster your opponent controls and summon a token. I didn't mention this earlier, but that's where Link Spider also comes in. You can link off the token you summon with at Ignister to make the Link Spider and attack for extra damage. The Update Jammer and the Slash Mage, these are both combo pieces. This lets you go for game with access code and or any other of your Link monsters. The Splash Mage is an extender for combos. I know the extravagance of this was only playing 1, and I know a lot of people might only be playing 1. I just really like it at 2 because I like to use a Splash Mage during my initial combo going first, and then I like having a second copy for going any subsequent turn. So that's why I'm playing 2. I guess you could cut down 1. Also, you could cut down one when you side in the Lingeribo, although I guess we'll discuss siding options later. But for now, 2 in the main deck. To finally round out the Link monsters, I'm playing 2 copies of Transcode Talker, 1 copy of Dark Templar, and a proxy of Access Code because I sold mine after it went up. The transcode should be self-explanatory, being able to recur update chamber to make whatever monster for game, also helping you climb the Link ladder to make Arrival Cyrus add Ignister or other options. It's very nice. The non-targeting effect can come up. I really don't have too much else to say about this card. Oh, I guess I could also say this lets you search the Gekshiri and the Doshin through the Rodov if you reveal it. So having it in the deck's nice, but you'd be playing it regardless of whether you played Doshin or Gekshiri, in my opinion. The Dark Templar, if I'm being honest, I would be playing this card regardless of whether or not it was good. I just really like the card, and you can tell from the intro that this is sort of like a pseudo mascot for this YouTube channel. Right now it is relevant. This is part of the combo you use to make the Arrival Cyrus add Ignister. Through the combo, you make Templar, you then summon 3 monsters with different attributes from your grave, then you make the Arrival Cyrus add Ignister. So that's how you get there. The second effect is also very relevant. It's like what I said with Light Dragon, where this thing, when you destroy an opponent's monster by battle, you can summon any Cyrus from your grave to your field. And so you can use that effect to play through Nibiru or play around Nibiru. Just being able to recur something in grave and attack for more damage can sometimes put you in game range. But that's all I have to say for that. Oh, actually, there is one other thing where if you want to play around Ghost Ogre or a similar card, make sure to make this Chainlink 1 and then whatever you summon, Chainlink 2, just so that this cannot be Ghost Ogre. That's about it for Templar, I think. I'm certain that I'm missing some points for some of these extra deck cards as well as the other cards I have in this deck, though I'll elaborate on those comments I'll elaborate on those points in the comments should they come up. For the access code proxy, I don't really think I need to explain this, or I guess I will, just to make sure this profile is thorough. Basically, this is your main win con, or is your main win con going any turn past turn 1. You make this in tandem with Update Shammer, you pop your opponent's board, you attack twice for either over 8k or over 10k depending on which materials you use, and that's about it. Your opponent can't respond to the activation of its effects, and so that makes it very difficult to deal with. So you just make it, try your best to win, and then usually you end up winning just because it's a very busted card. I don't think I really have anything else to say about this card as well. It's a very straightforward card, just make it pop, 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 and then attack for game. So yeah, that's why we have it in here. I have considered playing more than 1, maybe playing 2, but usually the 1 copy is good enough. Also, the fact that it's really expensive right now, so I haven't really tried out playing 2. 1 has been serving me perfectly fine. So this is all for the extra deck, and now we'll get into the side deck. Okay, so for the side deck, I do want all of you to keep in mind that these are my choices for the format. The side deck's very versatile. You can change it for what you feel like are your calls for the format. These are just my calls for the format. Also, some of these side deck choices are limited by finances. For example, earlier you might have recalled that I mentioned that I'm playing Dark Ruler instead of Droplets just because I can't afford Droplets. So there are some better options in here that I'll mention that I don't have access to just because of finances, but you can always change those options even if, in the case you don't like them. So to start out, I'm going to mention that I'm playing 3 copies of DD Crow and 3 copies of Lancia. So for the DD Crow, this is my option for dealing with graveyard cards. I know that Ghost Bell is an option. It does deal with a lot of the reborn effects. For example, it can hit Shokunai, it can hit Pisty. I think, oh, it also hits a lot of the Drytron monsters. However, DD Crow I felt like could deal with a lot of other things. It can deal with the same cards. For example, you can just target with the whatever Pisty summoning back, banish it. You can also target whatever is being summoned back from the Drytron graveyard, etc, etc. It also hits some of the more relevant decks coming up. Paleos, even though I don't feel like it will be a meta contender, it's still something that this deck can struggle with, given that the new Paleo deck stalls a lot. And so this can banish some of the Paleo traps. It can also interrupt their chain links. Against decks like Eldritch, it can banish trap cards that would otherwise banish themselves to search more Eldritch cards. And then it hits all of Rogue as well. So that is why I'm playing this over Ghost Spell, though you can always change this for Ghost Spell if you'd like, or you can just play a different hand trap, as I stated at the start of this section of the video. The 3 Lancia, I would strongly say you should play this regardless of what I say. Lancia is just really, really strong in this format. Being able to stop a lot of dragon effects, being able to stop Dino from being able to play. It also prevents a lot of the Tri-Brigade effects during their turn. And it will also hit rogue decks like Eldritch, Orcus, etc, etc. This is just a very solid side deck option right now. You even see Drytron players main decking this, which should explain to you why it's being played. Though I guess in the case of Drytron, they do search it off the Ben 10, whereas we cannot search it at all. But yeah, I really think you should keep this in the side for now. This opinion might change after the ban list and the format shifts, but in the current format, the month we have left, I would definitely keep 3 in the side. Aside from this, we do have 2 other monsters. One is actually sorry, not 2 other monsters. One of these is a proxy. So this Pankratops is a proxy, somewhat, and we have Lingrivo, as I mentioned prior. The Pankratops should ideally be a Harpy's Feather Duster. Mine's is in the mail, so I don't have it for the recording I'm currently making. However, for now it's okay. You could play Pankratops instead of Harpy's Feather Duster, but Harpy's Feather Duster is just better, just because having more removal that goes wide against your opponent, especially if they set off traps, is key. The Lingrivo I already explained. I didn't really like it in the main. I didn't feel like traps were too bad for the deck to play around, and in the cases where your opponent sets a lot of traps, you're kind of having a difficult time already. I do at least have the 3 twin in the main, so that's why I'm citing it. I have considered putting it back in the main, but it's something that I switch in and out sometimes. Again, like the other choices, you don't have to listen to these 2. Aside from this, we do have 3 Cosmic Cyclone, 1 Reboot, and 3 copies of Evenly Matched. The 3 Cosmic is just an extra back removal option, especially against any of those decks that have spell and traps that float. Paleos, Eldritch. Also, I guess some of the meta decks do have floaters too. The Dragon Link, Dragon Maid trap does float, and I think also I think some of the Tri-Brigade cards might float, I'm not sure, but essentially yeah, just good removal overall. The Reboot is also somewhat given, just being able to stop your opponent's trap cards and OTK them through them is very nice. The Evenly is also another just back row option. Being able to remove all your opponent's cards, or I guess yeah, it's good against back row and it's also good against established boards. Just being able to remove whatever your opponent has, banishing them face down, is very nice. I know this does seem a little bit counterintuitive. The fact that we want to OTK using access code, but this prevents you from doing that, does seem like you wouldn't play this card, but I felt like this card was very strong as it is. Also, now that we have the Lightning Overdrive options available to us, we aren't completely reliant on OTKing. We can make other things to preserve our field and OTK the following turn. For example, you can just make the arrival and then sit on that after you disrupted their board and hope to OTK them the following turn. Apologies if any of this logic doesn't sound quite sound. I haven't had too much testing with the side deck yet. To explain how to side in, I know that's a point that's very interesting to all of you. I did discuss matchups for some of these relevant. Typically what I like to take out is, if I grab my deck real quick, you might consider taking out copies of Ignister Island, copies of Silent Mining, copies of, if I can grab the cards real quick, copies of the Bururu or the Doyon. Basically just cutting a little bit of your consistency down to accommodate the inclusion of some of these cards. As I mentioned before, I do like having extra copies of these cards to either extend or make sure my combos go through. But if you're dealing with a tough matchup, being able to see these alongside the options you already have in the main deck is very crucial. Alternatively, depending on the matchup, you could always side in these cards over hand traps. You could take out the Droll, the Ash against back row heavy matchups, put in the Cosmics, the Evenly, etc. You could also take out the concessions I have. For example, Dark Ruler probably wouldn't be great against back row, so you could put in the Evenlies and the Cosmics in place. You could take out like a Doyon or a Brew or something for the red reboot. Against combo heavy decks, you could take out the Twin Twisters, put in the Lancia or the DD Crow, or you could put in both by taking away some consistency. The Link Rebo, if you want to side it in, I typically remove the Link Spider, though in the case you're playing against a deck that puts in Nibiru, you could just take out a Splash Mage, as we discussed briefly earlier. Like, it's hard to explain completely how I side against a lot of decks, since it varies on how that player is playing that deck and how my deck is equipped at the time. But those are just some general ways I would side. Just siding out the consistency cards or siding out some of the concessions / hand traps I have present in the deck. So yeah, I think that covers the side deck for now. I do want to reiterate that you don't need to follow anything I say regarding the side deck choices. You can always change them based on what calls you want to make for the format. The same goes for the rest of the deck, how you can change the deck accordingly to your preferences for the deck. You don't have to follow my choices. I think after this, we are going to talk about some final thoughts about the deck for the format. Okay, so it's certainly been a long video. I think at this point the video is around 40+ minutes, so I'll try not to keep any of you here any longer, though if you have been watching up to this point, thank you for watching. For my exiting comments, as I said at the start of the video, you don't have to listen to what I say. I'm not the best player in the world, I'm not the best at Ignister player in the world, so a lot of the things I say may not necessarily be true, and sometimes, even in the case that I might have valid points, you might have preferences that go against those, and so listen to what you want to do for the deck. I'm not telling you that you have to play my particular build. This said, for comments on this deck in the current format, post Lightning Overdrive, I definitely think this deck has a lot more potential moving forward. The fact that the deck is a lot more consistent and doesn't suffer from the same problems it did prior, for example, opening the field spell, now you just have Dark Infant to search it, means that it's a lot easier to play going to the format, and there's a lot of options the deck now has. You saw the Extravaganza list taking out a lot of consistency cards in order to put in more disruption. That's why you can play the deck. We can continue to play it sort of like how I'm playing it, just having a good amount of names, good amount of consistency, just balancing in between those two factors. Alternatively, you could try doing a going second version of the deck, since now that everything's so consistent, you could probably put in a lot more going second cards and then try to OTK your opponent. Essentially, there's a lot of options available to the deck. So I do think it will be relevant moving forward. I'm not sure if I can call it the best deck or a tier 0 deck, etc, etc. I do think it's very strong now, but it does still suffer some weaknesses that it had prior to Lightning Overdrive. For example, it's still very susceptible to Nibiru, and it does fold to Droll, which is in this format. You can see that I'm playing it right now, and I mentioned that during the video. So I think things like that will definitely hold the deck back. Nonetheless, in the hands of a good pilot and with the correct theory craft behind the deck build, I think this can get a lot of you out there far in events and get you winning a lot of games you end up playing, whether it be in those events that I mentioned prior, or if you're playing online, or other smaller events, or even with friends. So I strongly recommend this deck. Unfortunately, it is a little bit expensive right now. That price will go down post Megatin, so you don't have to worry, at least assuming Konami decides to reprint this in the Megatins. So if you aren't already playing the deck, I'd definitely consider looking at it, either to learn it so that you know how to play against it, or picking it up yourself, because it's really not that bad of a deck. I do enjoy it a lot, that's why I started a channel based off of it, and I'm sure some of you will enjoy it. Aside from that, however, I think those are all the comments I have left for the video. And so thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through these very long 50 minutes, I think now. Hopefully with future deck profiles I'll be less, or hopefully I try to cut down the time so that you're not stuck here for such a long time. But again, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. More videos to come soon. And for now, I will cue the outro.